So relax, Phil. You can relax. You did a great job. Thank you. I'm so sorry. It's this technology. So I'm so happy to be here. It's such an honor to be with my dear friend Phil and Gordy in Vancouver. And, we curse technology, but it's only because of technology that we can be together in this room. Look at that. Together in this moment in time. So I'm so excited and happy that you've invited me into your hearts. My main mission, just like Phil's mission and Gordy's mission, is to reimagine a new tomorrow for our children. How do we take what's working and literally cast away all that is not? And of course, any change, imperceptible or perceptible, takes courage. And the starting point, I believe, even before the school, is the parent-child relationship. That is the pivot of the first few months, the first few years of a child's life. So if the parent is not guided to create that foundation in the most conscious and evolved way, then we're sending a child to school already half empty. So my mission is to help parents enter that parent-child dynamic in the most conscious, elevated, and evolved way possible. When I was a parent, a young parent, I did not have people like Phil, and I did not have people like Dr. Shefali around me. I had not yet been birthed. So I was misguided. I had a lot of delusions of my control. I thought that I was in a hierarchical relationship to this being called a child. And I thought, ingesting everything from popular psychology and parenting books, that there was a linear relationship, top to down, and I could control my child. There were techniques and strategies I could do to my child in order for them to be compliant and obey. So I was on a high horse in my first few years as an early mother, not even contemplating that I was doing something wrong. In fact, I had all the books highlighted and I was following them precisely. Little did I realize that those ideas were primitive, were archaic, and were heavily based on dominance and control. I didn't know that. And I didn't even know there was anything wrong with that. I thought that that was the way to be a parent. Phil, can you hear me well? Okay. I'll just be babbling and no one can hear me. So there I was, a psychologist teaching other families. I should, reimburse all of them how to, do the proper timeout and how to control their children and give them the 5 tools to say the right things, believing that this was the way to do it. Then I hit rock bottom when my daughter was 3. And I realized that I was only becoming more rageful, more controlling, more obsessive with perfection, with her compliance. And I wasn't feeling like we had a thriving connection. And most of all, I was noticing her move away from her essential sacred self. Now that took some awareness. Thank God I had it after 3 years, because she would look at me with puzzlement, with aghast, with fear. And for a brief moment, when I allowed consciousness in, I would allow her to mirror me. And I would look in the mirror and I would say, oh my goodness, I am becoming my worst nightmare. How did this happen? And the epiphany dawned on me that I was operating out of deep fear. And I was using my child to be an extension of my incomplete self. When that epiphany hit me, it was the most uncomfortable discovery that I was to ever make in my life. Because what do you do with that discovery, that you realize that you are the cause of the negativity, the strife, the anxiety in your child and in your relationship? You know, it's so much easier to be ignorant. It's so much easier to pretend like it's the child's fault. All the books tell us, don't look within, just blame the child, fix the child, take the child for therapy. But somehow that epiphany, that one day when my child was 3, brought me to a skidding halt and made me realize that everything that was negative in my dynamic and every negative thought I had was coming from my belief systems, was coming from my sense of lack, was coming from my incomplete childhood, things that I was not given the bounty of this connectivity that I now know we have. I didn't have that awareness then. And I was splitting my daughter into good and bad. And I was making her do and not be. And I was teaching her that happiness lies outside, not within. And I was teaching her to be obsessed with everything external, not internal. And she came with this wholeness, and piece by piece, I was deconstructing it and leaving crumbled piles on the sidewalk of her childhood. I could see myself doing it, but I didn't know any better. And the books kept saying, keep doing it, you know, keep bursting her, keep fixing her, keep controlling her, keep correcting her. You know, your child cannot rise mighty and sovereign. So this was the start of my internal seismic volcanic revolution. And I didn't know what to do with this. You know, I didn't know Phil. I would have called him as a Phil. What's going on with me? Why didn't you tell me that I was living a lie, that I was deluded with the thirst for control, and I was full of scarcity and lack? And once you get this epiphany, then you look around and you see everyone else is with the same delusion. Everyone is living with the same delusion. And now it was my onus and my sacred obligation to do something about it, you know, to awaken other people, to go, no, we have to do this differently. So I wrote my first book called The Conscious Parent. And parents would buy the book and they'd turn the pages and wait for the part of where does the strategy to fix my child, what page is that? And they would turn and turn and turn. And the entire book was based on the evolution of the parent. That unless the parent heals their own inner scabs and wounds and their scars from their childhood, and unless they recognize how separate they are from this grand unity that is the human race, and that is our relationship with the universe, we will not do our children the justice that they deserve. And this is why we have generation after generation after generation of pain. You know, the universe sends us children to awaken, because children are the closest to essence and being. Children don't need to do to get approval and worth. They enter with an intrinsic sense of that connectivity. It is us who takes them away from their core self. So generation after generation, we keep birthing children, but we keep missing the point. We keep snatching and abducting them to our way of being, instead of waking up and going, oh, I'm supposed to be following them. But you see, we won't follow them as long as we are unenlightened and unawakened. Because in the unawakened state, children look ordinary. They look plain. They don't sparkle. Because what are they doing? Playing with mud or staring at a flower? That's not interesting. That's not achievement worthy. That's not recognition. That's not a post on Facebook. But to the enlightened mind, the child is the greatest guru. To the awakened self, who understands that our entire existence is designed for us to enter presence. For that mind, you look at a young child and you go, oh my goodness, I have a living, breathing Dalai Lama, Guru, Christ, Muhammad, everyone in front of me, the prophets of the world are embodied in this one being. I just need to follow their way. So the shift of understanding, the shift in understanding that it is our children who take us to presence, who take us to absence of attachment, who take us to detachment to outcome, who take us to joy in the simple moment of the here and now. It is that shift that is going to heal our generations. But we can't make that shift unless we are willing to awaken ourselves. As long as we are in the doing mode and thirsty for status recognition and ego fulfillment, because we're in void inside, we will not appreciate the sacredness of children. It is only when the paradigm shifts within us, within the parent-child dynamic, within the school system, and within the community, a drastic, shocking, gruesome paradigm shift, right? A bold and daring revolution in how we look at the most sacred relationship, which is the parent-child relationship, and then the teacher-child relationship. We will not heal. Simple. Our children come to remind us that we are whole. They come to remind us that we are united. They come to remind us that we are not of ego, but of essence. They come to remind us that what we have within is all we need, but we don't pay attention to those. So we take them down the conveyor belt of garbage, of toxic belief systems, of achievement, of doing, of status, of zip codes, of checklists, of prescriptions. This is not the way to the soul. This is not the way to the soul. Following the child's inherent blueprint and staying as close as you can to it while still functioning in this world is the portal to the soul. So that is what my work is about. And I want to just read to you a little bit from my book, The Awakened Family. I don't know whether it shows in mirror effect, but sorry about that. It's called The Awakened Family. I write in the beginning, the mandate of the awakened family. What is an awakened family? Why should we awaken? Why is it imperative in today's generation that we heal the most fundamental relationships in early childhood in order for our children to thrive? Why is it so pivotal? Well, it's pivotal because as a clinical psychologist, I see the pain of the first 10 years of every client's life. Why do you think clients are stuck in their 30s and 40s? Not because of what happened to them at 29, because of what happened to them at 9. Every adult problem can be rooted back to the first 10 years of a child's life. And who are the most significant influencers in the first 10 years? It's us parents and teachers. So if we don't know how to attune to the soul, our children will never be allowed to rest there. I mean, society, culture is not going to tell them that they can rest there. It's only us who have to be the shepherds of that deep connectivity with their soul. But if we don't honor our own connectivity with our soul, why should we even hold it sacred in our children or anyone else? So I say the mandate of the awakened family, the time for a new beginning has arrived, where family is no longer the chain that binds us, but is the earth from which we blossom and the sky we learn to fly. No matter how the family unit looks, it begins with a parent and a child, a relationship that holds the energy of the sun, with power to break patterns and resurrect the spirit. The awakened family waits for no one. I hear constantly, but the school, the public school I sent my child to, or my ex-husband, or my mother-in-law, these are mere excuses. The awakened and enlightened person, parent, teacher, waits for no one. You take your awakening in your hands and you can revolutionize your child's future. It begins to heal right here, right now. It recognizes that these sacred bonds can revolutionize the planet. We awaken when we become who we truly are. Most of us sitting here today don't know who we truly are. We left our essence years ago, left it discarded without care, because we were told that who we are inherently is not good enough. We were never allowed to feel that what we came with was exactly what we needed to develop further. We were told, no, we need to transplant who we are and instead create another sense of self. And most of us, because we were raised in unconsciousness, we adapted to the unconsciousness in the families around us. So if our mothers needed us to be compliant, we were compliant. If our fathers were raging alcoholics and terrified us, we may have either entered rebellion or become compliant. We morphed into to fit and survive in the unconsciousness of the family members around us. And that is such a disservice to a child's spirit, right? You're telling them, you can't be you because I'm too unconscious for you to be you. So you better adapt and meet my needs. You better get an A grade for me. One of my dear colleagues, she relates a story where she got her master's in music and gave the certificate to her mother and said, here, this is for you. I did this for you. It's not mine. Now, do we want to raise children who are so divorced from spirit and self-authority and sovereignty, for the sake of our comfort in unconsciousness? Or do we want to say no? You cannot hear? Cannot hear? Oh, you can hear. No, the people at the back say they cannot hear. Okay, now I'm going to have a sip of tea. Sorry. Now I've forgotten what I was saying. Okay. So we awaken when we become who we truly are. This awareness brings a realization of how liberating it is to be authentic, to be real, instead of who we think we are supposed to be or need to be or others want us to be. Once we have connected with our sovereign spirit, creating the space for our children to get in touch with their own spirit becomes the critical objective of parenthood. So this is the paradigm shift. It's not about grades. It's not about fitting in. It's not about belonging. But instead, it's about holding the space, allowing our children to stay as close to their authentic self as possible. But this is, as Oprah said once in an interview with me, she said, it's terribly inconvenient. It takes too much time. How many spirits can we have in a room? Well, then this is the choice we have to make as teachers, as leaders, and as parents. Is this life supposed to be convenient so that we can just lie on the couch and stay in slumber? Or is this life supposed to be jagged and scary and push you to the edge so that you do find your most alive and awakened self? So that's my 2 cents for now. I'm done. If anyone has questions, I don't want to keep talking. I want to interact with you. I can't hear the audience, so.
Okay. The question is about creating space for this to occur and examples of how to create the space to become a conscious parent. I don't know if I did a good job with that, but this is a lot more challenging than I thought. So can you talk a little bit about that, creating the space to be able to be conscious and to take a moment where something occurs and then you use that moment for your own evolution?
Yes. So, excuse me.
Bless you.
So, creating space is a process that one has to commit to, right? You have to see that as your mandate as a conscious parent. I will create space. What does that mean, though? What does that mean? That I just allow my kid to have a tantrum? No, that's not what creating space means. Creating space means that you fully understand that your internal fears and perceptions and belief systems crowd the space between you and your child and suck the air that your child can breathe to thrive. Your internal angst, your unprocessed stuff, your chaos, your unfulfilled longings, all your baggage that you have not looked at has the potential to obscure. Even though you're looking at your child, you don't really see them because the blinders from inside block the view. And that's what it means to be asleep, because your inner unprocessed stuff that you've never looked at, you've never taken the time and dedicated the energy, right? I tell people it takes 20, 30 minutes a day to clean the internal baggage, to make sure there's no internal plaque, emotional toxicity from yesterday. Forget yesterday, people haven't done it for years. So the buildup is so great that this blocks, crowds, clutters, and reduces the clarity that a parent can have to truly attune to a child. When you have done a lot of inner work and you are on top of your process every day, now this is an everyday process, it's a discipline. Like you go to the gym, you have to go to the inner working gym and work on yourself, work on the muscle of mindfulness. Then your stuff is in a little holding place. It's not spewing, vomiting all over the place. And because it's quietened down, because you've paid attention to it and you've processed it and you've articulated your inner processes and you've recognized what is yours, your boundaries, now you can see the child without getting activated. Otherwise, everything the child does activates you, right? Your child is having a tantrum in Target, you're activated. And I tell parents, well, your child having a tantrum in Target has nothing to do with you. You have to hold the space and ask yourself only two questions. What does my child need right now? And does my child need connection or does my child need a boundary? So those are the two-part questions you have to ask. What is the need? Is it boundaries or is it connection? And if you can just follow that and have clear boundaries and give deep connection, most of our problems with our children will fade away. So holding space is the recognition that you have to clean up your own internal baggage, because if you don't, it will immediately be projected outside. And you will not be able to see your child for what their need is. You will simply react to your child.
How that moves into the school system and whether or not that's personal work on behalf of teachers, or whether, describe how it kind of goes from the family into the school system and kind of evolution.
So the question is about, did you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Now we can't hear you.
Phil is the one who created this environment, and you should really ask him how he created an ambiance, a culture in the teachers where there were clear mandates, no imposition, no projection, clean your own baggage and keep it at home. When you walk into the school, you are here to fully attune and be present and listen for the unfolding of the child's spirit. He cleared away the curriculum. The curriculum was streamlined. It is streamlined. It was nature-based. It was discovery-based. It was curiosity-based. There was no pressure on the teacher to create qualitative or quantitative rankings. So the teacher was never under pressure to excel or to push the child to succeed. The teacher's mandate, and Phil will talk more about it, I'm sure, was only one: to allow the child to discover their own cadence, their own rhythm, their own tone, their own vibration. And when you walk into a school like that, and I know it feels like it's a school that's out of this world, because it is, and that's the tragedy. It should not, right? All schools should be predicated on this. But you see, our school systems have gone excessively and manically into doing, and Phil's school is excessively and manically into being. So this is the divide, and there's a price to pay for being. What's the price to pay for being? Being-based school. Yeah, you may not learn the alphabet till third grade, and you may not be, jammed with anxiety. That's the only consequence. Look at the kids who graduate from Phil's school. They're confident, they're articulate, they're connected. And look at the kids who graduate from a doing-based achievement model school. They're anxious, they're stressed out, they're taking Adderall in 10th grade. So when you look at the two models, you have to beg to, the question, what is the outcome here? What are we seeking here? Are we seeking children who are well-rounded in themselves, or are we seeking children who are well-rounded in activities?
Okay. Yeah, I think she did a great job. She said I should answer it, but I can do it when I get to my point.
Well, actually, I have a question for both of you.
Yeah.
The first part is for Dr. Shefali. I'm wondering, So the parenting that she's talking about is very intuitive to me. And I'm wondering if she has any, I don't know if she can hear me or not, if there's any suggestions about, because what I find sometimes difficult is meeting other parents who don't have that same awareness and may not even be aware of it. How, as a parent, do I navigate that with, kids at the playground and other parents that are not awakened or open to that? And I can't remember the other half of my question.
Well, that's enough.
Okay.
So,
I heard
did
it.
you hear it?
Forget the other parent, forget the other friends and parents. What about your own spouse won't be on the same page as you? Like, this is not something that just because you awaken, the whole world is coming along. Not by far. However, there are many of us who are on this path. So you have to join your tribe. You have to find your community. You can come to my Facebook pages. They're all people who are awakening. But don't expect other people to come on board. Number one. Number two, don't be scared that you're the only one on this side in your entire group. Of course you will be. We are the ones who are making the change. So we're going to be 1 in every 100. I feel like that in the world, 1 in a million, right? It's okay. That we are not here to have company. We are here to do and follow the truth, right? We're here to walk the truth. So if you want company and you want comfort, this is not the path. And then lastly, don't judge those who are not on your same level, right? The first instinct when you become awakened is to be very superior because the ego is still there, and we judge everyone else and we alienate people, and then there's a war of the spiritual people and the not spiritual people, or how spiritual one is. This is not a contest. True awakening understands that everyone will evolve and elevate at their own pace. So many wives come to me and go, I've awakened and I want to divorce my husband. I go, you could divorce your husband, but that is not so awakened if you do it in reaction. You don't want to judge where the other person is at. And you want to try to be so radiant with your light that they want to know what you're drinking, and they want to know what you're reading. And that's the way to attract people to you.
Great. I'm a little close. He can hear you. Oh.
So, it sounds like it might be worse for a school that embraces this. Until then, or for people who don't have access to that, what are ways that we can go about education other than just while they're public school or homeschooling? I mean, is there really not much other options? How do you? And if you are going like a schooling route, how is the community find other people that are doing the same thing?
Yeah.
There's a great, there's a Victoria Home Learning community in Victoria, which is phenomenal, and there are communities all over the world. It's amazing the number of home learners that are there and families who are embracing this. And you can be together online.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you deal with an unenlightened school system?
I didn't hear. What did you say, Shefali?
Is the question, how do you deal with an unenlightened school system because you don't have a choice, your kid has to go there?
Well, what other ways do you find? And so, it's community, and it was answered in the sense that there's something here in Victoria, and it's essentially finding the people who are in alignment and realizing that this alone paradigm, the separate thinking thing self, is the dominant paradigm, right? And so our thinking turns to that. And then if your thinking shifts, it's like, oh, there are people, many more people than I can imagine, who are ready to align together, and we can do this together. You can begin to find communion, which is beyond community.
So I send my kid to, I'm afraid somebody will be watching from their school and she'll get a bad grade tomorrow. But my kid goes to a school system that is traditional, right? So this is not about, again, creating duality and separation. This is about understanding the dominant paradigm and recognizing that you still have power as a parent to shake the dominant paradigm in your home, right? How you react to a test grade, how you react to an unconscious teacher. And then two, you get to go and shed light in the dominant paradigm. So I write to my child's teacher if she was unconscious, and I shed light, and I try to make friends and a relationship with them. Right? This is about building bridges with the dominant paradigm, not isolating ourselves in fear because we're so special and they're so stuck. No, this is about recognizing that they need to come on board, and we are the ones who are going to bring them on board. So I sent my child to a traditional unconscious school, and we're fine because whatever she comes home with, I'm there to deconstruct and to set her back on the right path. And if the teacher is rude, and the other day her teacher called her, kind of alluded that she was cheating, and I didn't get threatened by it. I said, good, come and tell me. Let's talk. Let's talk about what this means. Let's talk about what this does to a child. So, and they're very scared of me, like, oh, I didn't say, they're automatically afraid of me. But I want to build bridges and shed light. And we have to be advocates, and we have to be bold, and we have to go in there and say, no, let me educate you as much as I can. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Can you mute? The clock. And so here are our options. We can is offered, and we can continue to do some of that, asking questions. We can build the tetrahedron pretty quickly. I can just give you the, 4 vertices, the 4 hubs, and how they're interrelated, and explain a little bit about synergetic geometry so you have an understanding of what the word integrity means. And the other part was we can divide into groups of 4, and we can have a conversation, and then you can come back and share from that conversation. And that would be answering the question that the future is always pressing into the present. So in this room, something, and this, you would be in groups of 4, and it would be 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and a final 3 minutes. So you would have 12 minutes. It would be a 12-minute conversation. You would listen as if you were the other person. So I'm asking you to do something that may sound a little strange, but just bear with me. We're working on shifting a paradigm. You would listen from over there, whoever was speaking, you would listen to that person as if you were inside, rather than just out here, judging or evaluating or thinking about what you're going to say. And the question is, what is pressing in this moment? What can, and everyone would start, and I'll tell the person who's starting to start, and that, that'll be very easy. And then we can hear from each of the groups of 4. We can have people share, one from each group come up and share a little bit. In that way, we're doing something different than the traditional way of learning. You're going to be listening to other people. You're going to be listening in a different way to other people. You're going to be mixed up, I hope. I'm to find a mix to do that. And then after that's done, we'll see what kind of time we have. But essentially, I'm still in the live stream part. Yes? Am I still in the live stream part? Because I thought from 8 to 9 was me.
We're just switching over to the other camera. Yes.
I'm still in the live stream part. Okay, so I think that here's what I would suggest. Let me build a tetrahedron with you, okay? So why don't you all stand up for a minute? Okay. It's in a triangle like this, and turn to somebody next to you, because 1 + 1 = 2, and see if you can make a tetrahedron, okay? Open your triangle and see if you can make a tetrahedron, okay? So you see how this goes to here, right? And this goes to here. And this goes to here. There it is. Okay, we have a tetrahedron here. So now there are 4. 1 + 1 = 4, okay? So this was just to get you out of your seats and doing something else. So it's no big deal. And now you're touching each other, which is also cool. All right. So sit down. Get this kind of, here's your first synergetic lesson, okay? So this is called a vector equilibrium. So one strut has been taken out of each of these squares. Squares and rectangles are essentially shapes that have no integrity. So if you were to build something with this flexible hub that was a square or a rectangle, it would just, right? Okay, so however, if I rotate this, all I'm doing is I'm pushing this triangle in towards that triangle. That triangle, stick a strut between those 2 points, you have something that is all of a sudden stable. That something is called an icosahedron. Icosa is Greek for 20, okay? So now we have something that's stable. This is inherently unstable. You know, this is when submarines were first, developed, there would be an equilibrium point where anything that could happen would flip the submarine, because it was inherently unstable. So you can see how it immediately wants to go to something that's stable, and then if I continue to push it down, it creates an octahedron, another shape that holds its shape and that is inherently stable. It's a system that has a clear inside and outside. And then if I do this, let's see if I can. Oh, I'm just going to have to fold it and then there it is. It was so close. Now we have the tetrahedron. So you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 faces of the tetrahedron. And that's really where I am at this point, and I'm saying, here's the new paradigm school. First of all, it's not made on some kind of myth called the industrial era school model and processing, right? It holds its shape. It has integrity. Integrity is a mountain that we can never summit, but it has to do with, it really is a system. So there are 4 things, and I just made this up, so I'm just going to give you, based on 45 years of my experience, what's at each of those hubs? What do each of those hubs represent? The first one is children. And so that hub is it's child-centric. As strange as this may sound, schools are not child-centric. Just like the paradigm we articulate, when she's a mom and she just has Maya, she thinks this is how to do it. She's underlined the books, etc. It's not about the child. It's about some other agenda, and you heard her story. But the first vertex of our tetrahedron is it's child-centric. It must be child-centric. How would you know it's child-centric? If there was lots of children playing and making friends and having a really good time and getting up in the morning and they wanted to go to school. That would be your clue that this school is for children. Right? Okay, I know this sounds really simple, but I'm going to go on to the next one. The next one is communion. I can't stress this enough because communion is not just community. We do have models for, in our world today, the gated community, right? There's this gate in order to make us feel more secure, and you have somebody who you're paying to be board at the entrance of the gate, who's to check you out as you come and go and all of that kind of thing. That is not a community. That's something else that's based on fear. And it's also based on privilege, because in order to be able to live in the gated community, you have to have a certain amount of material wealth. You have to be rich. Communion is different than community. Communion is the ability to connect so deeply to the natural world as a primary teacher and to each other as being a part of your tribe who really loves you and knows you. Small sizes are the only thing that really works in schools, as far as I'm concerned. There's a certain number. I think it's somewhere in the area of 100. But once it gets beyond 100, I was in an association of independent school headmasters, and we were divided into big schools and small schools. Small schools in that particular association of 27 independent Michigan schools, the small schools were schools under 350. And I thought, wow, it's already a big school. it's really schools of about 100. So you can know and be known, and you can create trust and safety. Without those features, you really can't have the sacred childhood. The sacred childhood exists only when you feel comfortable enough about who you are and someone else. And then you can create this second hub, which is called communion. The third one is called consciousness. Conscious. Here I am being sponsored by a company that has the word conscious in it. And so this one has to do with the subjective part of our education, and I think that you already know this intuitively, that unless you are able to develop the interior aspects of who we are, you really can't have this rapport. And that's the word that we use to try and talk about creating that first triangle. As soon as that's there, the first triangle's in place. When you realize that subjectivity is an essence aspect. Now, meditation practices, live in subjectivity. Journaling lives in subjectivity. Silence by the edge of a pond lives in subjectivity. Art lives in subjectivity. The creative and performing arts often have an aspect that is about deep subjectivity. But mostly, I would like to read this quote from Buckminster Fuller again, just so that you get a sense of what subjectivity means. He says, I live on earth at present, and I don't know what I am. I know I am not a category. I am not a thing, a noun. I seem to be a verb, an evolutionary process, an integral function of the universe. This is the essence of a very different curriculum.
We're not things. We're verbs. The strange thing about my rewirement or the stage of development that I'm in terms of adult development is that what happens at this stage is that you really are surrendered more to being used for something greater than yourself. In that sense,
it's hard to explain to your friends who you are and what's going on, unless they're going through some similar process. Because the subjectivity aspect of it, you realize that you're here for a purpose that's far beyond yourself. And so, subjectivity in education really has to do with those poetry, So she said we abolish. We do have a curriculum, but it's rich in the creative and performing arts, and it really honors the introvert, and it loves the idea that you have time to go in. So I was going to do some kind of open-eyed meditation with you to give you a different practice. Shefali always says she's interested to do that, and she wants to do that, but she doesn't have the time. So I was going to make time for you to do that. The fourth, now this is, so if you have a triangle down here, and if you have a point coming right from the center of the triangle up here, and then you're just creating a vector down to each of those things, you have your tetrahedron. And the fourth one is the cosmos. So when you realize that we are made of the stuff of stars, not as a concept, but as an actual fact that we are made of the stuff of stars. And like when I'm doing this, some of us, we're in the thinking thing mind. We're taking a drink of water. Somebody thought I was really thirsty. Actually, we're becoming water. That water becomes us. We are water. Water is us, we are water. We are water made conscious. It's not like we're drinking water, it's done, it's gone, it's now in my system. And we are made mostly of water. When you get that kind of cosmic perspective, and here's the story, it's 1972, we've survived the first year of school, and we've begun to click on some things, and one of them was that we wanted to build 2 buildings because the farm that we were using had a spring thing called school tours, and we were invaded every day by 1,000 school children from Detroit and other places. So we needed to do something with the kids out in the field. I'm a really big fan of field trips. But I mean by field trips, there's actually fields that we're going to, and now the field is teaching us and informing us, and we are creating a field amongst ourselves. There's a really powerful, energetic field that we're leaning into. And so we did this intuitively. Let's build a teepee and let's build a geodesic dome. And so we did it as a whole school. So we did that. It was an amazing thing. We have these beautiful pictures from 1972. One of them is going to be on the cover of the book because there's a bunch of kids hanging off a geodesic dome. And it's a really cool black and white picture, so I think, okay, let's put that on the cover. And the other one is a teepee, so we made a teepee. Indigenous wisdom is an essential part of the next paradigm school. Place must be at the center of the next paradigm school. So here I am talking about the cosmos, but you have to be living somewhere, and that place has to inform your curriculum. And the more you let children be in the arms of the natural world, they fall in love. Falling in love isn't something you teach, and it's not something you do. It's something that happens. And so that, so the cosmos, and I really believe, and I'm determined to continue to do this, we did this in the early years, I really believe that teaching the story, the evolutionary story, so my friends in Kansas are going to go crazy, that's what school should be about, every school. We should really know and be able to dance and celebrate the scientific story that we know that happened 13.8 billion years ago when the great flaring forth occurred to this moment. And we should really understand our species. First, we should understand that we're mammals, and really get what that means, because that's really important. And if you don't know Yuval Harari's book, The Homo Sapien, I would highly recommend it. You should understand the journey of the Homo sapien, because we are referred to as Homo sapiens sapiens. Do you know what that means? Homo sapien means wise human. We're not acting like we're wise humans. We're acting like humans who really fuck things up terribly. But we have the ability to do something alone, separate. We're puny. Put me on an island and put a chimpanzee who has 98% of the same DNA on that island, I got my money on the chimp. But what we can do is we can cooperate and collaborate in amazing ways, and that's what's led to having dominion this moment over the planet. So a kid, during the 40-some years, this last night of school, all of us are sleeping on a hill together. We decided to make the last 2 days of school one continuous thing called the all school overnight, where we all sleep under the stars. And one of the ceremonial aspects of it was we were building model rockets, and just after dinner, we would launch these rockets. And over the 40-some years, we got good at rockets, because every time we'd get to this point, we'd want to, okay, how about this? A rocket, we were buying kits. We weren't inventing rockets. I mean, we actually did go off the rails for a while, but we had to be safe about this thing, right? But, here's a rocket that at the apogee of flight turns into a glider, and we watch it glide down, oh, that's so cool. Here's a poor cricket who's in the payload, who's going to go on a little journey, and we hope the cricket's going to come back. Oh, that's cool. And so we had these different things going on. Here's different stages going off. Here's a camera that takes an 8mm film as it points towards the Earth. And we're teaching the children that there is no up and down. There's only in and out. We live on a sphere. How could there be up and down? Relative to this stage, there's up and down, but we're telling them we are going outstairs and instairs. You're not going upstairs and downstairs. So we're never calling the sky up. We're saying out. You know, ask any pilot who flies a small plane. They're not coming down for a landing. They don't want to come down for a landing. That means that they're going to kill themselves, right? They're coming in for a landing because they're going in towards the center of the Earth and they're going out away from the center of the Earth. So we've taught them to say, there's no sunset. The sun doesn't set. You set the table. What does that mean? You put things on the table. That's what the sun is doing? Oh, come on. We're really doing a bad job of wiring children if we're using those kind of words. The sun clipses from view. So that's sun clips. Sun glimpse is when you first see it in the morning. So you got to get that you're on a spaceship. All right, so I'm in Cosmos. I'm permitted to do this. And so in Cosmos, what happens at some point in the 80s, a kid is just taken over by this whole thing. Many kids loved building these rockets and continued to build them. And one of them, Eric, decides at some point that he's going to be an engineer. And then he's attracted to the idea of working for Lockheed Martin. And then all of a sudden he's working on rockets, you know. And I get an email from him and it says, Maven is going to launch in November of 2013, and it's a rocket that I've been a part of a huge team, and I've been given the honor of being a part of the launch sequence, and all of the electrical systems are moving through me, and I've been given the opportunity to invite people to come see a rocket launch, and I was hoping that you and Karen would come. So I go, okay. I've always wanted to see a rocket launch, but I had no idea. So my daughter, Sasha, who's a filmmaker, and her husband, they're both filmmakers, the four of us are invited to Cape Canaveral, and we have VIP passes, and we're now, at a rocket launch. But you have to understand and appreciate, I'm going from little Estes rockets, to being at a rocket launch, in Cape Canaveral. And Sasha's given permission to get closer to the rocket because she's filming it. And we're in this amazing position. And Eric's voice is in the launch sequence. And I asked, how did you get there? And he said there was a vote on everybody who's working on the different experiments, they trusted the most. And I was the one. And I said, but it's a huge responsibility because if you say no go on any system, the countdown stops. And I said, where do you get the courage to do that? And he said, theater play shop. And I said, theater play shop? What kind of answer is that? She said, you know how hard Karen is as a director? That you really got to be on your mark and you do the break a leg thing and the show must go on, This show has to go on. We only have a window this big for this rocket to get to Mars. And they know I'm so committed to that as a result that they want me to be in that position. Because I will not say no go unless it's for sure it needs to be stopped. And there's no ego involved. So I'm listening to Eric over the countdown when it gets to the crucial times. His voice is saying, go. Another system reports in, go. Telemetry reports in, go. And I'm hearing this kid that they never grow up, right? It's just like, this kid is like in this position and he's doing this and he's crediting, his teacher, his theater teacher, with why he's there. And then the thing goes off, and it doesn't go up, it goes out. It goes out from the center of the Earth and it starts to move, towards Mars. Well, it's a very successful experience, and then Eric comes to school, and he's got one child and a child on the way, and his brother Andy is sending his kids to our school, and it just seems like a dream to me. And so this is in 2014, 2013 it launched, and then 2014 they come and they visit us. And they want to spend 2 hours with us, and I don't know what it's about. And he says, we want to start a school, and we're calling it Ardor, and these are our ideas, and this is the website. And I say to him, and you're going to give up your job at Lockheed Martin and what your passion of making rockets to do a school? And he said, yeah, look at my kids are, my kid's 3 years old, and I just don't want them to lose their genius. I want them to be in love with learning for the rest of their lives. So I said, I'll help you in any way I can, but it's a big decision that you're making. And in the end, he decided not to do it, and so it was really one of those things where when he left, I was so impressed with his priorities. Because he actually he said that day, I said, was Maven like the pinnacle of your career to this point? And he said, no, actually Juno was. And I said, well, tell me about Juno. So many of you know that Juno is the probe that has just entered the orbit of Jupiter. And Jupiter is really giving us the clues to the origin of our solar system. And it's about the evolution of our solar system, and it's sending us pictures that we've never seen before. And he told me why he thought it was the most amazing thing that he's ever worked on. He said, you know that it is the fastest solar probe that ever existed, and it's gone the farthest away from the sun of any solar vehicle ever. And I said, and you're excited about that because, he said, don't you remember? It was me that you put in charge of the wind generator and the solar collectors monitoring the amperage every day. And I just think to be a part of something that reached that far into space, that's just so amazing to me. And I'm kind of in awe about this because, as I told you before, I couldn't imagine anything like this. This was launching rockets, and now he's telling me that what happens in that industry is that the level of cooperation and the level of collaboration is so high, and it has such integrity that miracles occur because of that. That's who we are. That's the cosmos. And that's why it should be in every school. That's why we should be teaching it. So I would think that I could be done with that, and I could have these people for a half an hour. What do you think?
Absolutely. Say goodbye to the live stream when you're ready.
Yeah, everybody turn to the camera. Say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and for your patience.